Hello, Chris Green here with the Flood Insurance Guru. If you've got questions about flood insurance, flood education, flood zone changes, elevation certificates, click below to visit our website, floodinsuranceguru.com. You can also check out our daily flood education videos on our YouTube channel. Remember, we have an educational background on flood mitigation, which means we can help you understand flood risks like this right here, your flood insurance, and mitigating your property long term to help you minimize flood losses and flood premiums. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between flood zone A and flood zone AE. So what is flood zone A? Today we're here on the river and we're in a special flood hazard area, and what we're talking about today is what is flood zone A? It's a question we get every day, and it's one of the main flood zones across the country. So what exactly is flood zone A? Remember, flood zone A is within that special flood hazard area, that 1% annual chance. This means within any given circumstance, there's a 1% chance that it could flood within a given year. Now, one of the big things to know about flood zone A is the majority of the time, a flood insurance study report has not been fully done. So many times there's not a base flood elevation. And so that's important to understand. That's kind of what separates an A from things like an AE or AO flood zone, is not having a base flood elevation. So then what is flood zone AE? Today we're talking about what is a flood zone AE. Well, flood zone AE is a special hazard flood zone area. And what this means is that flood insurance is going to be required in this area if you have a mortgage or anything like that. Now, if you own the property out clear, flood insurance is never going to be required. But what a flood zone AE is what's called a 100-year flood zone. And what that means is 1 in every 100 chances the probability of it flooding. So strictly a probability is how this is determined. It could have been that this property has flooded in back-to-back years, but it doesn't change the probability because they look at the bigger picture here. So this is what a flood zone AE is. Now, outside the coast, a flood zone AE is going to be your highest area of flooding. What is the big difference? Well, the big difference between these two really comes down to base flood elevation. Remember, that's the elevation number that FEMA feels that flooding could come to in these 1% annual chance areas. You know, and many times these AEs have the base flood elevation and AE doesn't. So that's really the big difference between them. But remember, they're both going to be in the 1% annual chance of flooding, which is really important for you to understand, which means they're going to be in that mandatory and considered to be that high risk area. So if you've got questions about flood zone A and flood zone AE, is it required where you're at? What are your flood insurance options? Click below to visit our website, floodinsuranceguru.com. Remember, we have an educational background on flood mitigation, which means we can help you understand flood risks like this right here. Your flood insurance and mitigating your property long term to help you minimize flood losses and flood premiums.